What happens when your last-ditch effort to save your family's legacy gets called the worst sandwich in America by an influencer with 1 million followers? Do you retreat, apologize, and try to please everyone? Or do you lean into the chaos and call your creation a culinary car crash yourself? Today we're telling a story that has it all. A struggling third-generation deli, a desperate act of creative genius, and a high-stakes showdown between sincere passion and cynical cloud chasing. It's the story of Rossi's Deli and a monstrous sandwich called the Chimera. This isn't just a tale about prosciutto and pistachios. It's a powerful case study for anyone trying to build something meaningful in a noisy world. We're going to break down how Maria Rossi navigated a flood of feedback, learning to separate the valuable signal from the deafening noise. We'll explore why being loved by a few is infinitely more powerful than being tolerated by many. And we'll witness the marketing judo flip of the century, where a small business took its biggest insult and turned it into its greatest strength. So if you've ever felt the pressure to conform or wondered how to handle a wave of criticism, this episode is for you. Get ready to meet the Chimera. I'm Danny, and this is a new EduStory from English Plus Podcast. The ghost of garlic and oregano haunted Rossi's Deli. It was a friendly ghost, the kind that clung to your coat and whispered of past feasts. But it was a ghost nonetheless. It spoke of a time when the lunch rush was a symphony of shouted orders and the rhythmic walk of the meat slicer, not the funereal tick-tock of the wall clock that now seemed to mock Maria Rossi with every passing second. The deli was her grandfather's American dream, carved from cured meats and mozzarella. It was her father's life's work, a legacy of consistency and tradition. Now in her hands, it was a ledger of bleeding red ink. The world had moved on. The lunch crowd wanted kale smoothies and quinoa bowls, not the simple, perfect meatball subs Leo, her father, still insisted were the pinnacle of culinary achievement. "It's the quality, Maria," he'd say, his hands gnarled as ancient olive branches, lovingly wiping down the glass of the display case. "Quality is timeless." "Papa, quality doesn't pay the electricity bill," she'd reply, the words tasting like ash. Her older brother Nico, the pragmatist who had escaped to the sterile world of accounting, would nod grimly from behind his laptop at the corner table. "She's right," Nico would say, pushing his glasses up his nose. "We're 3 months from insolvency. We need a miracle." The miracle, Maria decided one desperate Tuesday night, would not be found in their grandfather's leather-bound recipe book. It would not be found in tradition or in the simple, honest flavors of the past. The world wanted noise, shock, and spectacle. The world wanted something to post on Instagram. Fine. She would give it to them. She descended upon the kitchen like a storm. The familiar scent of basil and salami was replaced by a chaotic perfume of experimentation. She was a mad scientist, her apron her lab coat. Her father watched from the doorway, his expression a cocktail of horror and morbid curiosity. She started with a bread, a brioche bun, decadent and soft, which she sliced and slathered with garlic-infused butter before toasting it to a perfect shimmering gold. On one half, a generous spread of fig jam, sweet and gritty with seeds. On the other, a smear of goat cheese she'd whipped into a pale, creamy frenzy with finely minced habanero, the innocent-looking spread smelling of sweet grass and hidden fire. "Maria, what is this?" Leo whispered, as if speaking too loudly might cause the concoction to explode. She ignored him. Next came the meat. Not simple turkey or ham. She laid down a delicate lattice of prosciutto di Parma, its salty, savory notes a perfect counterpoint to the sweet jam. Then a layer of spicy soppressata, adding another dimension of heat. On top of that, a heap of fresh peppery arugula, but it wasn't finished. The final insane touch was the pièce de résistance. She took a handful of crushed salted pistachios and sprinkled them over the entire teetering assembly. She pressed the top of the bun down, sliced the monstrous creation in half, and presented it on a wooden board. Now, it was beautiful. It was absurd. It was a riot of colors, textures, and smells that had no business coexisting. I'm calling it the Chimera, she declared, her chest heaving, because it's a monster. Nico emerged from his spreadsheet cave. He stared at the sandwich. Who on earth would eat that? Someone who's bored of your turkey on rye, Nico, she shot back. They put the Chimera on the chalkboard menu the next day for $18.95. Price that made Leo physically recoil. For 3 days, it was a bust. Customers would ask about it, their eyes widening at the description before safely ordering a pastrami on rye. The 3 chimeras Maria propped each morning were eaten by the staff for a somber family meal each night. The clock kept ticking. The ghost of garlic and oregano grew fainter. And then, on Friday, a lifeline. A young woman with pink hair and a camera that was surgically attached to her hand came in. She was a local food blogger, a micro-influencer with a small but fiercely loyal following. Her name was Chloe, and her blog was called Sincere Bites. She ordered the Chimera without hesitation. Maria watched from behind the counter, her heart a frantic drum solo. Chloe took a picture, then another. Then she rearranged the arugula for a better angle. Finally, she took a bite. A slow, beatific smile spread across her face. She chewed thoughtfully, then took another, bigger bite. She didn't speak a word, just packed up the other half, paid, and left a generous tip. That evening, the post went up. It wasn't just a review. It was a love letter. Chloe rhapsodized about the symphony of chaos, the perfect war between sweet and spicy, the audacity of the pistachios. She didn't just sell the sandwich, she sold the story Maria had told her of a third-generation deli fighting for its life. The next day there was a line. Not a huge one, but a line nonetheless. People were coming in, phones out asking for the monster sandwich. They were taking pictures. They were taking bites, their faces a mixture of shock and delight. At the end of the day, they had sold 57 chimeras. Maria felt a dizzying, unfamiliar sensation. Hope. The week that followed was a blur. The chimera went from a local secret to a citywide curiosity. Rossi's Deli was loud again. The slicer was walking. The register was singing. Leo, though still privately convinced the sandwich was an affront to God and his ancestors, couldn't deny the results. He even managed a grudging smile as he showed Maria the week's deposit slip. Nico was ecstatic, creating projections and inventory models. They were back. It was Nico who spotted Rex, the Gastro-Goon Reynolds, walking towards the deli the following Tuesday. Oh no, Nico breathed, his face paling. Rex Reynolds was not a food blogger. He was a content creator, a shock jock with a ravenous online army. His brand wasn't sincere appreciation. It was performative evisceration. He built his empire on tearing things down. His face contorted in exaggerated disgust in 1,000 thumbnails. He didn't review food. He executed it. He swaggered into the deli, a cameraman trailing him like a remora. He was a caricature of a man, with a waxed mustache, a t-shirt 2 sizes too small, and an air of unearthed superiority. So this is the place, he boomed, panning his phone across the humble deli. This is the home of the so-called sandwich that's broken the internet? Looks more like it's broken the health code. Maria's blood ran cold. She felt Leo's hand on her shoulder, a silent warning. Be polite. The customer's always right. Rex ordered the chimera, making a great show of gagging at the description. He sat at Nico's corner table, which Nico had immediately abandoned. The camera was inches from his face. He sniffed the sandwich. He poked it. He held it up to the light as if searching for defects. Then he took a bite. He chewed once, twice. His face went through a pantomime of theatrical horror. He lunged for his napkin, spitting the mouthful of food out with a dramatic flourish. Wow, he said, looking straight into his camera lens. Just wow. This isn't a sandwich. It's a culinary car crash. It's like a 5-year-old was given the keys to the kitchen and just went nuts. The fig jam is sickly sweet. The habanero cheese is all heat and no flavor. And pistachios? Pistachios on a sandwich? Folks, save your $20. This is without a doubt the single worst thing I have ever put in my mouth. The Gastro-Goon gives it a 0. 0.0. He stood up, threw a $20 bill on the table, and swaggered out, his cameraman capturing the stunned, wounded silence he left in his wake. The video, titled "I Ate the Worst Sandwich in America," dropped an hour later. The impact was instantaneous. Maria's phone began to buzz on the counter, a relentless vibration of notification, each one a tiny, digital stone thrown at the deli she was trying to save. The comments on their social media, once filled with praise, turned into a cesspool of vitriol. Rex's army descended. They were called frauds, hacks, charlatans. One-star reviews flooded their Yelp and Google pages, most from people who had clearly never set foot in the state, let alone the deli. The line vanished. The next day, they sold 3 chimeras. The day after that, 1. The silence returned to the deli, heavier and more oppressive than before. The ghost of garlic and oregano was gone, replaced by the stench of failure. That night, the Rossi family held a council of war. The mood was grim. "It's over," Nico said, his voice flat with defeat. He had his laptop open, showing them the analytics. Mentions were down. Sentiment was in the gutter. He tanked the sentiment score by 90 points in an hour, Nico said, not looking up from his screen. The velocity of the 1-star reviews is astronomical. This isn't a problem. It's an extinction-level event. We have to pivot now. "What do you suggest, Nico?" Maria asked, her voice hollow. "We pivot. We listen to the feedback. It's what any smart business would do. We get rid of the figs, tone down the spice, lose the nuts. We create a goon-proof version. We issue an apology. We say, we heard you, we messed up. Here's a new, more traditional sandwich. We can call it the apology." "Apologize?" Leo's voice was a low rumble. He had been silent until now, his face a stony mask. Apologize for what? For creating something unique? For trying? This man, this pagliaccio, this clown, he comes in here not to taste, but to destroy. He is not a customer. He's a vandal. We do not apologize to vandals. "Papa, this isn't about pride. It's about survival," Nico pleaded, his voice cracking. "The market has spoken. Rex has 1 million followers. That's 1 million data points telling us we're wrong. We have to adapt or die." "He's not the market, Nico," Maria snapped, her own voice rising. "He's a bully with a microphone. It doesn't matter. His followers are the market now." The argument raged, a storm of fear and frustration contained within the 4 walls of the deli. Maria felt like she was being torn in two. Nico's logic was sound, the cold, hard logic of business. The feedback was overwhelming. A pivot was the sensible choice. But her father's words resonated in her soul. Apologize for her creation? It felt like a betrayal. Exhausted, she sat down at the corner table, opened her own laptop, and began to read. She didn't read the new hateful comments. She went back. She read Chloe's original review from Sincere Bites. She read the dozens of positive comments that had followed. She scrolled through the Instagram posts from people who had loved the Chimera. And she saw a pattern. The hate from Rex's followers was generic. Gross. Looks nasty. Who would eat that? It was shallow, an echo of their leader's verdict. But the love was specific. That habanero goat cheese is a revelation. The slow burn is incredible. I never would have thought figs and prosciutto would work. But the sweet-salt combo is my new obsession. OMG, the pistachio crunch at the end, don't ever change it. They loved the very things Rex and his army hated. They weren't just customers, they were fans. They were her people. Rex's followers weren't her market. They were just noise. It wasn't a wave of calm that washed over her, but a spark of defiance. Rex's followers weren't her market. They were his echo chamber. Her market was the person who drove 30 minutes because they'd never had habanero and goat cheese before. That's who she made the sandwich for. That was the signal in the noise. She knew what she had to do. It wasn't Nico's pivot, and it wasn't her father's stubborn refusal. It was a third path. She stood up. The deli fell silent. "Nico, you're right," she said softly. "We have to listen to the feedback, but we have to listen to the right feedback." She turned to her father, "And Papa, you're right. We have nothing to apologize for." She took a deep breath. "We're not changing the sandwich. We're doubling down." Before Nico could protest, she laid out her plan. It was audacious, risky, and a little bit terrifying. The next morning, a new post appeared on Rossi's Deli's Instagram page. It was a high-quality photo of the Chimera, looking more beautiful and defined than ever. The caption, written by Maria, was not an apology, it was a manifesto. "This is the Chimera," it began. "It's been called a lot of things this week, including a culinary car crash. We kind of like that. It's not for everyone. It's not quiet. It's not safe. And it's not traditional. This sandwich is for the adventurous, for people who aren't afraid of a little chaos. It's for people who think sweet and spicy can be best friends, and that a little crunch can change your life. We didn't create the Chimera for everyone. We created it for you, the ones who get it. If that's you, we'll see you for lunch. If it's not, that's okay too. We still make a killer meatball sub. To everyone who has shown us love, thank you. You are our people. To the rest of you, in the words of the great Gastro-Goon, the sandwich is 0.0 and we wouldn't have it any other way. Hashtag culinary car crash. Hashtag love the monster." She hit post, her heart pounding. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a notification. Chloe from Sincere Bites had shared it. "This is how you handle bullies," she wrote. "This is authenticity. I'm going for lunch. Who's with me?" The post exploded. It was shared by other food bloggers, by chefs, by customers, by people who had never even heard of Rossi's Deli but were captivated by the story. The narrative had shifted. This was no longer about a bad sandwich. It was about a small family business standing up for itself. It was David versus Goliath, authenticity versus cynical clout chasing. The next day, the line was back. It was longer than it had ever been. It snaked down the block and around the corner. People weren't just there for a sandwich. They were there to make a statement. They held their chimeras aloft like trophies, posting pictures with the hashtag culinary car crash. They bought t-shirts Maria had hastily printed with the same phrase. Maria, Nico, and Leo worked side by side in a whirlwind of motion. Nico, his face flushed with adrenaline and awe, could barely keep the register stocked with cash. Leo, slicing prosciutto with a speed that belied his age, looked over at his daughter and his eyes shone with a fierce, boundless pride. He finally understood. She hadn't abandoned his legacy. She had built a new wing on the house he had maintained. At the end of a long, exhausting, triumphant day, Maria stood in the doorway of her family's deli. The air was thick with the scent of toasted brioche, spicy cheese, and sweet figs. It was the new scent of Rossi's. It wasn't a ghost of the past. It was the vibrant, living aroma of the future. She had listened to the market, but she had done it by finding her voice, not by losing it. And in the process, she hadn't just saved the deli, she had given it a soul. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoyed the story, The Viral Sandwich, and this is the first in a series of stories. I'm calling them EduStories, educational stories. And what I'm trying to do here is to create an interesting story you want to read or listen to, obviously. And at the same time, we can learn a lot of things from the story. And I'm not talking about words. I'm talking about ideas. I'm talking about concepts here. So let's get to it. So that was a story about more than just a sandwich, wasn't it? It's a case study wrapped in a narrative. Maria's journey from desperation to defiance holds some incredibly powerful lessons for any entrepreneur, marketer, or business leader trying to navigate the treacherous waters of the modern market. Now let's break down the main takeaways. Number one, your brand needs an authentic voice. It's your why. At the start, Rossi's Deli had a problem. It had no voice. It had history, it had quality, but in the modern world, it was silent. It was just another deli. The Chimera was Maria's first attempt at speaking up. It was weird, audacious, and personal. It was her. When Rex, the influencer, attacked, Nico's first instinct was to silence that voice and conform. His idea for the apology sandwich was the ultimate act of sacrificing brand identity for market acceptance. But Maria realized that the sandwich's weirdness was its identity. Her final Instagram post wasn't just a defense of a product, it was a declaration of her brand's voice. It said, "This is who we are. We are a little chaotic, we take risks, and we're not for everyone." And the takeaway here, people don't just buy a product, they buy the story and the values behind it. Before you can figure out your marketing, you have to figure out your why. What do you stand for? What makes you different? Your authentic voice is your most powerful asset because it can't be easily copied. It attracts people who believe what you believe, turning them from simple customers into a loyal community. Now, if you want to dive a little deeper, a great exercise here is to write a brand manifesto, just like Maria did with her Instagram post. Forget about selling for a moment and just write down what your business believes in. What's your philosophy? Who are you for? Who are you not for? This document will become your North Star for all future marketing decisions. Simon Sinek's famous TED Talk and book, Start With Why, is the foundational text on this entire concept if you would like to check it out. And now let me move to the second point I want to discuss based on our story. Not all feedback is created equal. Learn to filter the noise. Now, this is the absolute core of the story's conflict. Nico saw 1 million followers and a flood of negative comments as data. He wasn't wrong technically, but he was reading the data without context. Maria, on the other hand, did something brilliant. She segmented the feedback. There's the noise. The feedback from Rex's army was low quality. It was generic, just said gross. It was emotional and came from people who weren't her target customers anyway. They were never going to love the Chimera. This is noise. And there's the signal. The feedback from the initial fans, like Chloe, that was high quality. It was specific. They said things like, "Love the pistachio crunch," or "The sweet salty combo is perfect." And it came from her ideal customers, the adventurous eaters she was trying to reach. This is the signal. The lesson is that treating all feedback as equal is a fatal mistake. If Maria had listened to the noise, she would have destroyed the very thing her true fans loved. And the takeaway here is that you must clearly define who your ideal customer or target audience is, and actively seek out and prioritize their feedback. Create channels for them to talk to you. When criticism comes from outside that group, you can largely ignore it. It's like a chef who specializes in spicy Thai food getting a 1-star review from someone who says, "I hate spicy food." The feedback is useless because that person was never the intended audience. Now, if you want to dive a little deeper, look into the concept of creating user personas or customer avatars. Now, this involves creating a detailed profile of your ideal customer. What are their values, their pain points, their passions? When you get feedback, ask yourself, is this coming from one of my avatars or from one of my ideal customers or user personas? If the answer is no, you have permission to discount it. And now let me move to the third point. The power of a niche. It's better to be loved by few than tolerated by many. Now, before the Chimera, Rossi's Deli was trying to be for everyone. They had simple, classic sandwiches. Problem is, when you're for everyone, you're truly for no one. You become invisible. The Chimera was the opposite. It was explicitly not for everyone. Maria even embraced this in her final post. This is the love it or hate it strategy. By creating a strong, opinionated product, she repelled a lot of people. but she created passionate, diehard fans in the process. Those fans became her evangelists. Chloe's Sincere Bites post was far more valuable than 1,000 lukewarm 3-star reviews. The goal of a niche strategy isn't to get the biggest piece of the pie. It's to own your tiny slice completely. Now, the takeaway here, don't be afraid to be polarizing. If you try to please everybody, you'll end up creating something bland and forgettable. Identify a specific niche of the market that is underserved and create something they will absolutely adore. Their passion will fuel your growth far more effectively than the passive acceptance of the masses. And here, if you want to dive a little deeper, Seth Godin's book, This Is Marketing, is essential reading on this topic. He talks extensively about finding your minimum viable audience, the smallest group of people you can build a business around. The idea is to delight that core group first and let them spread the word for you. And now we come to the fourth and last point that I want to talk about based on our story. Turn controversy into conversation. The judo flip. When Rex called the sandwich a culinary car crash, he meant it as a death blow. And for a moment it was. But Maria, in a stroke of genius, didn't run from the insult. She grabbed it, owned it, and turned it into a badge of honor. She used her attacker's momentum against him, a perfect marketing judo flip. By adopting the culinary car crash hashtag, she disarmed the weapon. She took control of the narrative. It showed confidence, a sense of humor, and a refusal to be bullied. This transformed the conversation from Rossi's Deli makes a gross sandwich to Rossi's Deli is a cool, defined brand that stands up for itself. People weren't just buying a sandwich anymore. They were buying into that story of defiance. Now, the takeaway here, you can't control what people say about you, but you can control how you respond. Don't be defensive or angry online. It never works. Instead, look for opportunities to reframe the conversation. Can you find the truth in the criticism and embrace it? Can you use humor to diffuse the situation? Owning the narrative is one of the most advanced and powerful marketing skills you can develop. And if you want to dive a little deeper, look up real-world examples of this. Think about how brands like Oatly or Liquid Death use humor and self-awareness to handle criticism or lean into their unique identities. Analyze how they respond to negative comments on social media. You'll often see them using wit and confidence, not apologies and defensiveness. Well, my friends, Maria's story is a powerful reminder that in business, your voice is your currency. Balancing that authentic voice with the right feedback isn't just a marketing tactic. It's the foundation of a resilient, beloved brand. And with that, we come to the end of our episode. I hope you enjoyed this new style of episodes, educational stories, where we start with an interesting story. I hope you enjoyed the story first, and then we learn important things from the story. Of course, the focus of today's story was business, but we're going to focus on different things in future educational stories, like English or science, or maybe other things as well. So stay tuned, come back for more, because there's always more with English Plus Podcast. I'm Danny, and this is English Plus Podcast. And remember, never stop learning with English Plus Podcast.